Hey cousins, welcome to another episode of Respectfully. I have been waiting for a little bit of time to do this whole debrief of my trip to Israel because one, every time I looked at the photos and videos, I just got sad and wanted to go back there. But two, y'all have had me fighting for my life, literally fighting for my life on the internet, all because of one little scandal because I did a walk with me in Gaza next to the humanitarian aid. We'll get into all that tea in just a moment. Now, that being said, I had an incredible time there, but I also learned a lot. This trip was different from some of my other trips in the sense that I went to the West Bank, which I have before, but this was my first time, I think, going to the West Bank during the conflict, if I remember correctly. I also went to Gaza for the first time, and that was crazy and absolutely broke the internet, and so many other incredible things that happened, as well as I went to, never beating the allegations with this, but I actually did go to an Israeli intelligence exhibit. I was invited to go, and it was a huge honor to go, and it's an exhibit that's going to be open to the public soon, but I got to get an early look over at it. So we're going to be talking about all this today, as well as talking about the allegations. Was I paid to go to Israel? That is what everybody's asking me, and you're only getting that answer on my show, where I actually get paid. Be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Welcome to Respectfully. Y'all really hate to see a brother get his shekel up. That is what I'm starting to learn. Y'all hate to see a brother go to Gaza. Okay. So before I get into all the tea and the messiness of this trip and some of the stuff that I learned, I want to just talk about how incredible of a time I had in Israel. I feel like this was one of the most fun trips. I mean, every time I go there, I feel like I fall more and more in love fall more and more in love with Israel, to the point where everyone's like, when are you going to make Aliyah and just move here? Don't think I won't. Don't think I'm not tempted to move there. I have the time of my life every single time. The food, the culture, the people, everything. I have some highlights just here for you, if we can scroll through a few of these. So first of all, I had my first Israeli wedding experience, which I did not ask to be crowd surfed. I was minding my business and got picked up by an IDF soldier, and he literally just put me up on top of this crowd of people. But they try to say that they hate black people in Israel. This is debunking that right there, okay? Literally at the time of my life. Let's see what else. We have another video from that wedding. This is my good friend Yehuda. If you have not yet watched my 100 Days After October 7th mini doc, that is actually the guy who came with me all over the Gaza Strip to record it. And he was really like an emotional support system for me while I was in Israel. I actually get really emotional just talking about the guy because when we went there right after October 7th, I was so stressed out. I couldn't believe I was there. It was just a lot going on. You could still smell the death in the air. And for him to be someone that actually lives in Israel, for this to be so much closer to home for him as a Jewish Israeli, I really am so grateful for Yehuda. I can't thank him enough. And I told him, I was like, outside of like paying you for your services, it's like, I don't know how else to repay you for this. And he told me a year and a half ago, the one thing he wanted from me is that if he proposed to his girlfriend, I would come to the wedding. And I told him I am a man of my word and I will be there. And when I sent him my flight confirmation, he was absolutely baffled. And when I meet people like him, so good, just so good-hearted, such a great person, great soul. Everybody around him had great energy, as you can see here. Just some of the kindest, most beautiful, incredible people I met at his wedding, and that's the kind of people he surrounds himself with. And when I hear about the hatred that people have for Israel and for Jewish people, I immediately think of this group of people, and it just breaks my heart that such good-hearted people, anybody could want something bad to happen to them. So when people say what has made me so invested into this, it's meeting great Israeli people like them. As you can see here, I was having the time of my life. Israeli weddings are like no other. I really don't think I've ever been to a more lit wedding than this. Like, you could see it on my face. Yes, they swear up and down they hate Christians and they hate black people in Israel. But look at me. Look at me. Is this what happens? Is this what happens when a black Christian goes to Israel if they're supposed to be spitting on me and attacking me? Child, do you know how lit I have to be to do the splits? This is me on the way down to the splits. I have not pulled out that party trick in a hot minute. And I don't think I've pulled out that party trick since my liberal days. Actually, I know that's a lie. CJ Pearson would clock me on that. But it has been a minute. This is actually two of my good friends, Noah and Tomer. They were two of the people that really helped show me around there. They both have lived, I believe Noah still lives in Tel Aviv. Tomer used to live there. And this was actually at the all-white party. This was a meet and greet as well. Shout out to Olim in Tel Aviv. Noah is a good friend of mine. She actually hosts like these events for like hot young Israeli families to come together and just party and network. It's so much fun. And she allowed Cam Hibgy and I to have our meet and greet at this event to coincide, which was just so much fun. What else do we have here? Shout out to Aaron. Aaron's a good friend of mine that lives in Israel as well. He was on Love Island, Israel, and he has been one of my most supportive friends from Tel Aviv. What else do we have? Oh my gosh. Shout out to the Carlton. The Carlton Tel Aviv takes care of me every time. Beautiful 5-star hotel right on the beach. Again, delicious. I can't even look at that kebab. I can't even look at the kebab. I'm getting hungry. The kebab. That was one of the best kebabs I've ever had. Move the picture. You stressing me out. Went to the wall, went to the hotel. The Western Wall is amazing. Everybody was like, are you going to kiss the wall? No, but I'm put my hand on it. Pow, pow, put my hand on it. Went to the, you know what's actually funny about this photo? After I posted this photo at the U.S. Embassy, everybody was like, how did you get a photo there? And I'm like, oh, trust me, we got yelled at after. For some reason, you're not allowed to take a photo by this like embassy sign. I didn't know that, and I don't know why, but I did it anyway. I'm like, what you gonna do? Kick me out of Israel? I'm Hasbara. Oh, child. So that was so funny. And again, people try to act like Israel is like anti-Christian sites, but there's so many beautiful churches there and cathedrals and all these different places that are preserved. I don't remember what it said on that pillar, but I was feeling it in the moment. Just gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous ancient architecture of places where Jesus used to preach himself. So how dare you? How dare you try to say that they don't like Christians in Israel? Please. They do so much for Christians to come. If for no other reason than tourism, they want the Christians to come there, but they know that that's the birthplace of our religion too. And they're very respectful of that. Like, be so for real. And oh, what a moment. What a moment. This was me. I believe this was me at the Golan Heights area. Just learning the history of like the war and the conflict and the 6-day war and it's just so interesting to hear the war strategy of how Israel has survived all this time. Because like during the 6-day war and even the war just like to establish their independence, they had like 1,000 ops around them. It makes no sense that they were able to fight off the amount of Arab countries simultaneously that they were, but they were fighting by land, by sea, by air, and still was dragging all of those wenches by their lace front. So learning their strategy is just like, it's brilliant. I just love to hear about the brilliant war strategy of it all. But yeah, that gives you a vibe. That gives you a gist of like what the experience was like for me over in Israel and just like some of the positive. Now, one of the things that was a little crazier was I did go to Gaza. And how this came about, actually, I'll get to how it came about in a second, but this is the video that has absolutely broken the internet, particularly for some reason overseas.
If I were Israel, I wouldn't even provide matching socks to Gaza. But here's all the aid that y'all claim doesn't exist. Now walk with me. I'm here in Gaza, and all I see is food, water, and opportunity. But instead of Hamas distributing the ramen noodles, they're eating it all, and that's why their leaders are on Ozempic. The United Nations brings the food here to look like they're actually doing something productive, but they never finish the job, just like your ex. Now this food is sitting here collecting flies, but y'all want to blame Israel. Then you have Egypt, who built the wall of Donald Trump's dreams, keeping the Palestinians here, but y'all don't say anything to them. Why don't you call on any of the nations of Islam to distribute the food to Palestinians? Mind you, there is petroleum right there. Gaza got the energy. Gaza got the terrorists wasting all their energy.
So, okay, I admit, I'm the first to admit, was it a little much? Well, yeah, but I meant everything I said. And the thing is people are more mad. They're trying to act like, oh, I was petty because I was like dancing and stuff in Gaza by the aid. And because I was like, oh, what do you want the IDF to be, DoorDash? I was dead serious at that part. Like the whole thing, everything I said, like, yes, it was a sprinkle of comedy in there, but I was very serious. You have these women of width, these big backed mothers going to their children acting like their kids are starving, and they're doing full blown photo ops. Okay, here's the reality. A lot of the people in Gaza are not actually starving. Point blank, period. Y'all can get mad at that all you want. Some of them are, but some people in America are starving too. What country is there that there aren't some people starving? So of course there's going to be some people starving during a war zone, as horrible as that is. But there are also influencers in Gaza. There are people who literally influencers. You have people literally, like I saw like an iPhone unpackaging video come out from Gaza recently, and I was just like, great. Great, y'all are chilling, especially if you are the child of like some Hamas leader. Like I assume they're very rich. Their whole family is getting a bag at that point. But people got mad, and now, again, I understand it's a sensitive issue, and I'm not trying to like add humor to it too much and like be crazy. But the fact of the matter is, and here's the video of the humanitarian aid that people are so mad that I highlighted. People, even when I posted this video as a standalone, everybody was mad. Because it's ironic to me that people love to be like, okay, go to Gaza and see what it's like there. So I go to Gaza and I see what it's like there. And then the people who tell me to go don't like what I see. Okay? They try to say that I went to a set. They tried to say that this was AI. They tried to say that I was in a green screen. Oh, excuse me. All of which is just ridiculous. Here is the video. Literally the humanitarian aid right here. Like there's tuna, there's flour. And then people were mad at me like, why is there so much flour? For the bakeries. They have like literally so that they can bake their own food. They have all this stuff here just sitting here. And the reason that it's rotting and collecting flies, and this is all new, by the way. So it's like, it's pretty fresh. The reason that it's sitting there is because who is going to distribute it? So to clarify, this is beyond Israel's control. Like this is beyond like Israel's border. Okay, this is inside of Gaza. We were right outside of Rafah. This is their biggest humanitarian aid site, and there's a bunch of them. There's a bunch of humanitarian aid site. What happens though when the UN and all these different groups drop off their food? What do they expect to happen? Y'all need to understand, Gaza is not organized. And it's not organized because they elected terrorists. So when it comes to what's supposed to happen with all this food and all these resources, you can't just open it up like a Costco and tell all the Gazans to come there when the IDF are the people who are supposed to keep it safe. Like you can't have both. Okay. If you want it to be like a big Costco, then you need to have some people come organize it, but nobody will. The UN won't step in. None of these NGOs will step in. The PLO won't step in. None of the Arabs will step in, especially Egypt. If you want to know the most anti-Palestinian people in the world, go ask some of the Egyptian leaders. I'm telling you, I beseech you to ask some people from Egypt how they feel about the Palestinians. I beg you to ask them. They built the wall of Trump's dreams, just like I said in my video. But everybody gets mad when I say that. And when I say that the IDF is in DoorDash, do you think the IDF is supposed to go hand deliver all this aid to the Gazans? And now the tea about this too, there is enough food in that one singular base to feed every single Gazan family for at least a week. At least. And they constantly have new food coming in. The whole lie about they're not letting trucks into Gaza, that's a lie. That's just objectively a lie. And like there have been incidents. I'm not saying the IDF is perfect. There have been incidents where there might have been a little crossfire moment here and there. But here's the thing is, how would they have even known what truck was which if it was coming in? So it's like, it's just all so ridiculous. And the times where people have died near the humanitarian bases, they were like miles away. People also don't really have a sense of geography. The people who died in like crossfire when like there were actual fights going on and all that kind of stuff, it had nothing to do with them trying to come over and get the aid. It had to do with there was some terrorist or somebody from Hamas was over there and they were handling business like the IDF should. Because again, y'all try to come at me and be like, how do you sleep at night? I sleep at night thinking it's a good thing I don't have a red button. And you don't want me to elaborate on what I mean by that. Okay. Israel, it goes through so much work to make sure that this aid can get there. And it's like, if I were at war, there's no way I'd be feeding my enemy. There's no way I'd be feeding the people, because everybody's like, oh, we'll separate Hamas from Gazans. A lot of the Gazans support Hamas. A lot of them don't. But a lot of them do. And a lot of the kidnappings that happened on October 7th actually were the Gazan civilians who went in and did the kidnapping. But again, another thing that a lot of people don't recognize is, do you realize that the Palestinians aren't a monolith? They have their own brains too. I mean, a lot of them are raised to be terrorists. But that being said, the ones who aren't, and that's just being objective, and we'll get into the receipts I have of that later, you have a lot of the Palestinians who want nothing more than to get Hamas out of power. I actually even sat down with Masan Hossab Youssef, who was the son of the founder of Hamas, and he will even tell you there are a lot of people who are there who know what's happening from Hamas and in the Palestinian territory. They know that it's crazy what's going on over there. Okay, they will be the first to tell you that what Hamas is doing to their own people is peak oppression. It is the real oppression that black people in America cosplay like they're dealing with. Okay, so they want to get rid of Hamas just as much as anybody else, but then there are the people who support them, which is why they elected them. So they're not a monolith. There's a range of discussions that happen there. They're just hush hush about it because they don't want to get beheaded. Okay, now here's where the whole scandal got crazy. So when I posted that video of the walk with me, for some reason it went really, really viral in Europe, and there's like all these blogs posting it, and there's a million blogs that are now posting this screenshot and like similar screenshots saying that it was a sponsored trip. Now, every time I tweet something or every time I check my DMs, I see this exact screenshot, and it's literally the exact screenshot every time where everybody just puts a rectangle around it. And I want to address the allegation: was I sponsored to go to Israel? Or was I paid to go there? So first with the latter, no. Nobody wrote me a check to go to Israel. Nobody wrote me a check to go to Gaza. And when it comes to the sponsored, people are trying to conflate the two things. So how this became a scandal, because I'm a very transparent person. Israel 365 did help put together a whole trip where they were helping some influencers and creators and people who are behind the scenes. They were helping get us there to take us on a tour. This is nothing new. There are tours that go to Israel every single week from America, whether they're political or whatever. It's not a new thing. There's all kinds of people who do that. And why is that? It's because people in America don't understand the Middle East. People in Western society, just overall, they view things through a very Western lens. So they view everything from as black and white. And I mean that like racially and like as an analogy as well. So when you go over to Israel, first of all, I always say the first thing that shocked me, it's 50 Shades of Brown. They try to make it into a black versus white issue. Israel is wildly diverse. If you think New York or Los Angeles are diverse, go to Israel. You will be baffled by the amount of languages you hear just within 10 minutes of being in the airport. It's actually crazy. And it's baffling. I actually went to this community of like young, hot black people in Tel Aviv, and I was so blown away talking to some of them about, and I wish I had like a camera crew with me because they were just such interesting, cool, hip people. And they're baffled by the notion that black people don't live there. They are absolutely blown away. And when I bring it up to them, like how it's even shocking to me to see so many young black people just like kicking it in Israel, like very westernized looking. They're just like, yeah, we exist. Like we're hanging out. We don't deal with racism. And if they do deal with racism, it's just like any other Western place. Like, yeah, you have your occasional ignorant people, but in Israel, it's much less often because they actually have a real existential threat. And what also people in America need to realize is other countries don't view race in the same way that we do. Even example just of slavery being racial, we were like the first country to really do that. Like other countries, it had more to do with either religion or region or poverty, like indentured servant type of situations. America was the first to make that kind of stuff about race. And we tend to think that everybody else thinks the way that we do, and they don't. They just literally don't objectively. So going back to my main point here, was the Israel 365. So yeah, I went there with them, and they got a small grant that had to do with like, I think they said like a quarter of their expenses, and it was just like a grant to help, people come and see what was actually going on. And that had nothing to do with the Gaza trip, by the way. I went on that separately, and I'm going to circle back to that. So when I went with them, we did stuff like we went to the Golan Heights. We went to historical areas of war. We went to see ancient cathedrals, ancient synagogues, ancient churches. We went to Christian sites. We went to the Shuk, which is like a massive farmers market that turns into a party. We had drinks. We went to wineries. We had fun. We went to the beach. And also we had a lot of free time. A lot of the time that we were there, we were just there kicking it, like literally just going out and hanging out with people and meeting people and just having a good time. Like, and a lot of the people who were there weren't even just like full Zionists. Like even my friend Emily, she wasn't even sure what she felt on the issue yet. Emily Saves America, she went there to see it for herself, and she's like, this is nothing like what I thought it was going to be. And I'm like, I told you, everybody has this weird misconception of what Israel is like and what the conflict is like. And when you get there, you realize very quickly that you're told a lot of lies in the media about the reality of being in Israel. Now, also, there's this allegation that we were forced to make content. No, we weren't. I don't think during the actual tour itself, I made any videos. I was just vibing on the tour. And I was already going, mind you. How I even ended up on that trip was a fluke. I had already planned on going because I was going to my friend Yehuda's wedding. Then when I got invited to go on this trip, they were like, oh, well, we have similar dates. You could just like leave the tour early. I'm like, okay, cool. So I went there too, just to be a part of the group and just to give the perspective of somebody who just likes to visit there. And also like telling people, if we're going to be honest, I was telling them what clubs to go to in one night. I sure was. I was like, we got to go to Kuliyama on this night. We got to go to the Shook on this night. I was telling them where to go for the good time. I sure was. So it's like, people are trying to make it so much deeper than it was, and it really wasn't. There was no paycheck to go. They didn't even pay for my full hotel, mind you. Like, I paid for like a significant portion of my own hotel, which is fine. Like, did they pay for my flight? Yeah. But the amount of hate, the thousands of death threats that I have just from Italy alone, because again, that walk with me weirdly went so viral in Italy. The amount of hate I deal with alone just for being a Zionist is not worth a check. Like, especially, it's not worth a free flight. Okay, I can buy my own flight. Like, my bills are not affected. Like, I work very hard. Trust, I can pay for my own flight. I fly every single week at this point. I don't need a free flight. That is not enough incentive for me to cover up starvation and support genocide. Like, do you hear yourself? Like, you might not like me, but to think that I'm an evil enough person to want to support genocide because I'm getting a paycheck, that is insane. That is actually insane. And if I wanted to maximize my income, do you know how much money I can make right now if I turn on the Zionists? Because there are a few countries, and I would name them if I was feeling petty today. There are a few groups that I could get a check to turn on Zionism right now. Or if I went and joined the Democrat Party, if I went and became a liberal again, do you know how much money I could have made during the elections now that I have a platform if I just would have switched up and went back and had a whole blue pill story? It's like, please, if I wanted to maximize my income and have less BS in my life, I could easily go grift. But no, I choose to be put through absolute hell on the internet every single day of my life because I'm actually passionate about this. God forbid I disagree with you. Like, how narcissistic do you have to be? But I digress. So that was the initial tour that I was on. Then I went to the wedding, and then the next day I went to Gaza. Now, going to Gaza was actually a very last minute thing that happened. I was talking to a couple people about how I had interest in going. Well, they were like, well, we are actually considering putting it together a small group of people to go while things are pretty chill over there, like relatively chill for like war standards, as crazy as that is to say. And I was like, yeah, like if it can work, like let me know. I ended up going very last minute. And when they say it was sponsored, and I really should just start suing you people. I really should start suing you people for saying that I was paid to go. There are people saying that I was paid $70,000 to go. Trust me, if that were the case, there would be signs. Trust. Y'all would have saw me. Y'all would have seen me pull up here with a brand new AP watch. I'm telling you, like, be so for real. Or I'd be talking about Bitcoin. I'd be talking about how I finally got myself some Bitcoin. Let's be so for real. But no, the sponsored part of the Gaza trip, which again was separate, completely separate from the tour, just from connections that I have out there that Cam Hibgy and I went on, that part of the tour was sponsored in the sense that they paid for the bus that we rode in on. And actually for me, I'd even ride in on the bus. My friend took me there in his car. So they didn't even pay for his gas. It was so funny when I tweeted about it. I was like, they didn't even sponsor the gas to get there. He was like, amen to that. Okay. So no, the sponsoring came from, they paid for bringing us vests and helmets and then gave me a bus ride back to my hotel. That is what, and not even all the way back to the hotel. Like, that's how, y'all be trying to talk about the Jews being cheap. But then next thing you know, you want to say how much you think that they're paying me. You think they're running me on this shekel. They didn't even give me a full ride back to my hotel. Okay, so I had to call a Get, which is like a ghetto taxi that they have out there. No shade to the Get. No shade. I should have called Get ghetto. I really shouldn't. But I had to catch myself a Get from the bus stop. So when they say they sponsored, yeah, they sponsored to take us there. That's all it was. And then we made content there. There was no pressure. There was no contract. There was nothing. Nobody at any point asked me to make content there for the sense of like a tour or sponsorship. The only content I did there is if I went on like my friend's podcast because like we're literally just friends. Like, so the whole thing of people trying to harass me with that screenshot saying that I was sponsored and paid, I wish it were true. If AIPAC ever wants to write me a check, please don't hesitate. my Venmo, my PayPal, my Cash App, all at my first name. All y'all can run me a check, run me my money or run me my fade. Okay, I accept shekel, I accept yen, I accept pesos, I accept any form of currencies if anybody decides to run me a check. But you know what? In the time being, send me those super chats. I would love for y'all to send a super chat on my YouTube channel so that we can keep the lights on in here because I'm not getting paid from Israel. So yes, finally wanted to clear the air on that now that it has died down a little bit because the death threats actually did get a little crazy. I thought about actually compiling some of the craziest ones, but I decided to keep it cute today. I digress. Now, when we get into what I learned in Israel. So first of all, I learned a lot. I sat down with some really interesting people, and including shout out to my love, Flor Hassan, the former deputy mayor of Jerusalem. She is just such an incredible woman. She has a podcast called The Quad that I've been on, and I would love to go on again. I've been on there twice. And, you know, I learned some things from her, and I confirmed it with a bunch of other people. Do y'all realize a lot of people try to talk about what's happened after October 7th, and then they'll be like, oh, well, what about October 6th? What about it? Do y'all not realize, and a lot of you don't, because I didn't know this, Israel really actually thought that they were on great terms with the Palestinians at this point and thought that their issues were decently subdued, that the ceasefire was working. They were in the process of increasing work permits of the Gazans and the Palestinians in the West Bank as well, coming into Israel to work, to the point where they were actually planning on doubling it by the end of the year. The goal was but between October 6th through December 31st, the goal was to close to double the amount of work permits. And there were already I believe it was like 30,000 work permits were already out to the Gazans and the Palestinians. And they were hoping to get to at least 50 by the end of the year, just in that couple months. So right when their guard was down, which is why October 7th was such a shock and such a surprise to everybody, because things were actually getting better and turning a new leaf is what it seemed like. But no, instead they attacked. And just so you know how calculated and evil the attack was, here's one of the photos that I actually got from one of the Israeli intelligence exhibits. It's can we pull that up? So here is like even just a photo of what the Palestinians had, where they ended up making replicas inside of their own base of what some of the kibbutz and what some of which is like a village, and what some of the towns and also some of Tel Aviv, what they looked like. They made like mock-ups so that they could practice going in, beheading, SAing, and all the evil, terrible things that they did on October 7th. That was a very calculated effort, and it was done it was able to happen because of the betrayal. The betrayal of the people with work permits went and took photos, got drones, did all these different things so that they were prepared to attack on October 7th, so that they could slaughter people as they ran to the bomb shelters, so they knew where certain houses were. They were even monitoring details of like what time certain people went to work, what time certain homes were going to be empty, were there kids and women in this home, like all that kind of stuff, literally to the point where there was one family that survived because they were supposed to be out of town for Shabbat because their habits were being monitored that closely. The only reason their home wasn't attacked and it was used as a safe house and they didn't go and like bother to look all over the house is because the terrorists were informed that family was going to be out of town that day. That is how terrible the betrayal of trust ended up being. And then I even learned, this actually blew my mind. Do you guys know what the last straw was for October 7th? Because I didn't know this. The last straw, the thing that radicalized the Palestinians and the Gazans enough to want to attack Israel on that exact day, is they were told that the Jews were storming the mosque. They were told that the Jews were storming the Temple Mount. And what I mean by that is, I have been in front of the Temple Mount. I can show you pictures of me in front of the Temple Mount. But the Temple Mount is considered one of the most holy locations in all of Islam. And really, it's built on top of what would have been the most holy place for the Jews and really for a lot of Christians. It's where the second temple was. So the Dome on the Rock, the Temple Mount, they were told that the Jews were running up to it and trying to run inside, that they were desecrating it and urinating on it and touching it, when the reality is that Jews aren't even allowed to go in it or near it. If a Jew tries to get too close to it, or really even an American, if I try to get too close to it, they aren't allowed to just like slaughter me, but they might. It'll go 0 to 100 real quick. Real quick. A Jew is actually banned from going there, and Jews actually aren't even allowed on certain areas within the old city on certain days and certain times of day, because there are so many laws that they have made. And go watch my interview with Flor Hassan. She talks very extensively about this. They're not allowed by Israel's laws. Jews are not allowed to be around the Temple Mount or to try to go in it. Okay, so for them to lie, and trust me, if that actually would have happened, it would have been on video, it would have been on camera, there would have been all types of, really, there would have been murder. Like it would have been a full-blown bloodbath if Jews tried to storm the Temple Mount. But that didn't happen. But what happened is that Hamas went and told, and the anti-Israel propagandists went and told the Palestinians that was happening, that their holy sacred site in Jerusalem was being attacked. So that's what radicalized them to go and attack them. So I went to this Israeli intelligence exhibit, never beating the allegations there. I know that sounds insane, but I'm a connected person. Okay, I work really hard to get the truth out there. So I get invited to these things. Please don't think I'm on Israel's payroll. Just because I went to this exhibit. And I laugh at it because I understand from outside looking in how insane it looks. Like, I can understand why people think I'm a shill. I genuinely am just very passionate about this, and this is how I feel, and it is what it is. So yes, I went to an exhibit, one that's going to be open to the public soon, but I was one of the first people to go there, and I honestly really hope a lot of people go there to see some of the stuff that they uncovered from the Palestinians and from Hamas. So let's just go through these images that I have. Put my eyes on, chow. Can you zoom in a little bit, please? Okay, so this is some of the stuff that they found there. So this is one of their handbooks there with Sharia committee. And it says on there, and again, this is like the translation in Arabic, and you can use Google Translate for a lot of this if you want to, if you don't believe what they're saying about it. But it says every Jew is considered a combatant, including women and youth, even if unarmed, on page 286. And mind you, they let us flip through the books, and I was just taking my Google Translate app and reading so much of this stuff, and it's actually crazy. Let's keep going. So this here, it's a handwritten note from inside of a house in Kibbutz Berit. It says, "We will bring death to you. Get out of our land before it's too late. We are people who love death. Free our land. Palestinian resistance." Okay, so this was literally written inside of a kibbutz. Let's keep going. Oh, this is one of the craziest ones. This is actually one of the craziest things that I've ever seen in my life. So this is basically like a guide of certain phrases of what to say to terrorize the people during October 7th. So it's an Arabic to Hebrew phrase book for the abductor. So this is teaching Hamas and the Gazans that went over after. This is teaching them how to terrorize people in Hebrew. Okay, it says, "Women here, children here, take off your pants. We will X the hostages. Where is the kibbutz leader?" This is the kind of stuff that they have in their handbook. This is the type of stuff that they want to make sure that the Hamas people were able to say, and to say it in Hebrew so that they could really. They wanted you to know exactly what was about to happen. When they talked about the women and taking the pants off, they wanted the women to know, just to psychologically torture them that much more. Not only are they physically SAing you, but they are actually wanting you to know, they want you to see the hit coming. So it hurts that much more. Oh, I'm literally like shaking as I'm talking about this, because some of the stuff that I couldn't take pictures and videos of inside of there was just so gruesome. Like, I learned a story about, and they have images of it, and you can tell by the body language where there were women who were held down and they were SA'd while being burnt alive. And you can tell by the way the body like burnt, like it's like a whole thing, but like I get lightheaded even just thinking about it. Let's keep going on the images. So you can see here, these children are told to idolize the thought of being a terrorist from early age, like literally from conception at this point. Like, you see newborn babies wearing Antifada type of merchandise. You see them holding guns. Like, this is what they want their kids to idolize. Let's keep going. Again, proud father holding up his child that he's raising to be a radical terrorist. And then I have this for people. It's like, you guys try to say that like, oh, this isn't going to affect Americans. It absolutely is. It absolutely 100% is. Here you have a bunch of young Palestinian children in Gaza holding both American and Israeli flags, just setting it on fire and tearing it apart. Like, they are told to hate the West. It's not just Israel. If Israel falls, you don't think they're coming for us next? Are you serious? How unserious do you have to be? Let's keep going. Like, again, like here in America, we teach our kids to want to be Boy Scouts. Over there, they're putting these kids through training camps to be terrorists. And I talked to Masab Hassan Youssef, again, the child of one of the sons of the co-founder of Hamas, and he talks very extensively about just like these torturous training camps that they're put through and the indoctrination and just like the amount of pain that these kids are put through from a young age. And like the training camps, they are not enjoyable experiences for these kids by any means. They're very awful to these kids. Let's keep going. So this is selections of the teachings of Sheikh Abdullah Azam. As jihad education begins with children, and the soul is refined only through killing and combat. This is the type of stuff that they teach. Let's keep going. Again, a list of the books, like here's some of the most common books that you'll find all over Gaza. If you zoom in, you'll actually see Mein Kampf. And I have never actually held that book or seen it in person. That was my first time I saw it, and it was in Arabic. And to have Mein Kampf, if you don't know, it's Mustache Dudes, can't say it on YouTube. It's his whole autobiography basically, and it's him explaining like why he feels the way that he does. And one thing I didn't realize until reading this, he's actually a full-blown pagan. Like, I knew he was evil, but like I didn't know he was a full-blown pagan. And there's like rhetoric in there about worshiping the goddess of vengeance and all kind of just evil, crazy stuff. Like, it was wild. I had no idea. Let's keep going. Oh, this was crazy. I actually have a screenshot of the Google Translate of this. So when I tell you that the kids in Gaza are educated from a young age to despise Jews, I cannot emphasize enough how literal that is. They have a bunch of like their educational workbooks there. And here in America, when we have like a word problem, it's like Johnny has 5 apples. If 2 apples are given away, how many apples does he have left? This is the Gazan Palestinian version of Johnny had 5 apples. Let me read this to you, what this says on Translate. And again, you can screenshot this and put this in the Google Translate app if you don't believe me. It says, palm cultivation is widespread in Palestine, such as the Jericho and Jordan Valley regions, the Gaza Strip, and I don't know how to say that. As a result of Israeli violations in uprooting trees, some of them are broken. If a palm tree is broken, as in the adjacent figure, and the length of the inclined part of the tree on the ground is 13 meters, and the length of the tree before it fell 20 meters, is it possible to find the measure of the angle that the inclined part makes the ground surface? Is that not insane? So literally, you have this workbook of them saying that Israeli settlers and violators want to come and tear down the trees that the Gazans love. What is the angle at which the tree fell? That's wild. That is crazy. And that's just like one of the more soft ones. The whole workbook is full of every single problem that you have. It's like, fill this in. I forgot to translate this or what the translation of this one says, but it says something crazy too. And it's basically like they identify all of this as Palestine. And it's just absolutely wild how from such a young age they are indoctrinating these kids. This one actually was really eerie to me because here at PragerU, at PragerU Kids, we have the All Around the World series. And here at All Around the World, we're teaching them about energy independence. We're teaching them about history. We're teaching them about financial independence. We're teaching them about, supporting the law and like being law-abiding citizens. This is their version of Around the World. It's around terrorism. It's around the Gaza Strip. So this is like, again, just cartoons radicalizing these kids, telling them to worship terrorists. And this is what their education is about. These kids are told from such a young age to hate Israel. Like I wish that Hamas loved their own children as much as they hated Israelis. That would solve so many issues. And there will never be a proper 2-state situation or even just like a proper independent situation until Hamas, or really until Gaza, because Hamas is never going to. They're literally a terrorist organization, even if certain commentators want to recently say that they're not, which is insane. They will never be able to have peace inside of Gaza until they stop radicalizing their children from such a young age and the way that they're doing here. This is insane. Absolutely nuts. Let's keep going. And just scrolling through some of these quick, a lot of the people try to talk about the journalists and the UNRWA and saying that these were innocent people and that how dare the IDF go after them. It's like, nope, here is a UNRWA employee ID card, owner's affiliation with the Islamic Jihad terrorist organization. This was found during October 7th. So again, these people, there will be people who happen to be journalists, but also work with Hamas. And then those people end up getting, caught by the IDF or bombed by the IDF. And then people try to be like, oh, they went and killed journalists. It's like, no, those were journalists who were also terrorists. Let's be so for real. Let's keep going. And another similar thing. This employee of the UNRWA was a nurse, but also happens to be a terrorist. Let's keep going. Literally, that just like knocked the wind out of me seeing. This is like the hatchet that was used. If you end up, because they've released a lot of them now, there's actually a really horrible video of a man who actually wasn't even Israeli. I believe he was a Thai worker who happened to be in Gaza at the time. And he was at the, not in Gaza, he happened to be at the Nova Music Festival. And they caught him, they threw him to the ground, and they took this hatchet and they beheaded him. And they recorded it. And they bragged about beheading this innocent man on a camera. So there's so many other photos and videos that I have, and unfortunately some of them I just gave my word just out of integrity for the victims. I was not going to release or show them, but these were some of the ones that really stuck out to me that I think are worth 100% for you guys to see. And shout out to Cam Hibgy. He recorded a lot of this too and did some great, because he's a real journalist. I'm a commentator. I'm not a journalist, but I like to go and be able to learn things for myself so that when I come back to you, I can tell you the real tea. But Cam Hibgy, friend of PragerU, former PragerU employee. He is doing great journalism work. Go and check out his work with Turning Point USA and Frontlines, where he documented a lot of this experience as well. Now, beyond that, I actually met with a lot of Palestinians to get their perspective as well. And it was interesting to learn so much about Palestinian culture because a lot of Palestinians live in Israel to this day. I, again, don't understand why people don't understand that, but at the same time, I do understand it's because people don't actually educate themselves. I met with a Palestinian journalist who has been doing journalism for decades. He is a Zionist, and it's interesting to learn his perspective. He is a Zionist, but obviously he leans a bit more like sympathizing with the Palestinians, and just hearing his perspective was interesting. He told me no question was off limits. He doesn't think that Bibi is committing war crimes, or there was one particularly that I spoke with for a long time, but I actually did meet quite a few of them. But the sentiment that I got overall is they don't think that Bibi is a war criminal. Some of them question his leadership. They think that he's past his prime, which is like, okay, I can understand why you think that. But a lot of them also admit that they don't think that Israel has anybody that's ready to step up to take the position of prime minister. So while they think that Bibi is past his prime, they also don't think that there's anybody that can step in and take his place. And, it was interesting hearing some of these Palestinian journalists try to humanize Hamas a bit. They tried to make it seem like Hamas isn't as bad as everybody else thinks. But their way of explaining it was like, oh, yeah, like they go too far sometimes. And the SA and the beheading babies and all that kind of stuff, like that might be doing too much. But, in the beginning, their intentions weren't that bad. And I'm like, well, their charter always talked about killing Jews and Christians. So they're like, well, yeah, but that's why they have a new charter. That's why they made a new charter 20 years later after getting power. It's like, okay. That's all I'm gonna say about that part. But then I was also learning. I went to the West Bank again, and I actually got to swing by like Hebron, which is a prominent city. And that's another thing. People don't realize that there are wealthy Palestinians too, even in the West Bank. Hebron is actually a very affluent city. Like I'm talking golden faucets rich. Their homes are insane. Some of those people live such lavish lives, and you will not guess what it is that so many of these people in Hebron make their money doing. Making fake ancient artifacts and selling them. They make fake artifacts claiming that they're from ancient Israel, and they sell them online. They sell them at Alibaba. They put them on eBay. They sell them even at the Muslim quarters over in the old city. That's what they're doing. A lot of them have become filthy rich by scamming people. Y'all already know I have so much to say about that. I have so many disrespectful things to say about that. But all I'm going to say is I'm not surprised. It checks out. It checks out that these people over in the West Bank are scamming people just like they are scamming society with their propaganda. But again, like, they don't identify as Israeli, but they're also Zionists. They know that they're better off living on the side of Israel and living with like Israel occupation than they are being just under Hamas. They know good and well that's the truth. So it was just very interesting to meet a range of people there in the way that I did. But all this to say, and all this to summarize, if there's just so many things I wish people understood. I wish people understood that, one, I can be passionate about something without a check. On a serious note, I think it's funny. I actually play into, in my personal circle all the time, the narrative that like I'm getting paid in shekel. I'm always like, let me get my shekel up. You can be passionate about something without a check, especially when you realize it's an existential threat, when you realize that we are in this era right now where so many biblical events are happening. And I know that God calls for us to stand with Israel, and I'm very passionate about that. I am passionate about it from a spiritual standpoint. I'm passionate about it from a geopolitical standpoint, because I know what could happen if Israel falls and these radical terrorists take over that whole region, and then we don't have an ally in the Middle East. I support it just from a human standpoint of, like, for the sake of the Palestinians and of the Israelis. I want them to have a better reality, and that better reality will only come if Hamas is completely eradicated. Then on top of that, I wish people understood how fun Israel is. It's like, it's crazy to think that in the middle of a war zone, these people have so much fun and so much joy in their hearts and such good spirits. You go there and you have such a great time. They embrace you. They want you to have a good time. If you don't have a place for Shabbat dinner, like, if only I had a shekel for every person that made sure I had a Shabbat dinner. And it wasn't just me. There were people on the trip that I was friends with, or people that I just met in general that weren't even like public figures. They weren't recognized, but everybody was making sure you had a Shabbat dinner. Everybody make sure that you're eating, that you're happy, that you're healthy. If you're lost, they will come help you out. Like, the people of Israel are such good-hearted people, and that's why it's consistently ranked as one of the happiest places to live in the world, even during times of war. And they are just so full of love, and they're not petty like people in Western society are. Why? Because they actually have a real existential threat. So I just feel like going there is so important, especially if you're skeptical of Israel. If you are skeptical of Israel, you are the most important people to go there, because you need to go see it for yourself. And if you're a Christian or Jewish or even Islamic, go to Israel, see what it's like for yourself, talk to the people, and they will think you're absolutely insane for the fact that you think it's this racist, apartheid, racist country like we do here. And that's one other thing, just one last point that I forgot to say. I asked every Palestinian person I met and every Arabic person I met in Israel if they thought it was an apartheid, and they all gave me the same look of, how could we be in apartheid if we have Arabs in the Knesset? How could we be in apartheid if we have equal rights in this country? And again, you could argue that the Arabs actually have more rights than the Jews inside of Israel. And you can see that in my interview I did with Flor Hassan. And that's all I have to say about that. So, cousins, thank you for tuning in for this whole Israel debrief. I'm just so grateful for you guys tuning in, for even hearing out what I have to say. I know it's a controversial topic, which is why I'm always open to discourse. Be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe. Let me know if you've ever been to Israel, or if you're open to going to it once the war chills out. And I will talk to you soon.